Susanna Truitt stood behind the rustic wooden counter of her family's garden store, Truitt's Blossoms, sweeping stray petals into a small pile while the Georgia sun bathed the shop in golden light. The soft scent of jasmine and fresh soil filled the air, but the peaceful scene couldn't calm the quiet ache in her chest. It had been 2 weeks since Adam, her high school sweetheart and Marine officer, sat her down on the weathered porch swing of her parents' home and ended their 12-year relationship with a quiet, "You deserve more than I can give you." She hadn't seen it coming. Not after 12 birthdays, countless letters across deployments, and a shared Pinterest board labeled "Future Home." She had waited for the ring, not a goodbye. Now, Susanna filled her days with 2 perfect flower arrangements, dodging small-town gossip and well-meaning customers who kept asking, "What happened, honey?" She'd smile and change the subject, but each time, the crack in her heart grew just a little deeper. The store was her haven. Nestled between a local bakery and a boutique bookshop, Truitt's Blossoms had been in the family for 3 generations. Ivy curled around the windows, and baskets of petunias and zinnias lined the entryway like a floral rainbow. Inside, it smelled like memories, fresh lavender, her mama's apple cider candles, and the dusty scent of old seed packets from her late grandfather's time. That morning, she had just finished organizing a row of garden gnomes when her younger sister Avery rushed in, carrying a flat of wilting pansies. "We've got a funeral order due by 3, Avery huffed. "And also, Mom's trying to recreate the Easter lily pyramid again. I told her that last year it nearly crushed a toddler." Susanna gave a small laugh despite herself. "Noted. I'll handle the funeral spray if you distract Mom with coffee and a pastry." It was the kind of busy that kept her from thinking. The kind of day where she could pretend that she still had a plan, even if it had just walked out the door in uniform. As the shop bell jingled and a new customer entered, Susanna pasted on her practiced smile, warm, polite, composed. Her heart might have been in pieces, but she had a business to run, family to support, and pansies to revive. She didn't need a prince or a fairy tale. Just peace, purpose, and maybe a little less heartbreak. Or so she thought. Late morning sunlight dappled the sidewalk as Susanna wrestled with a large terracotta planter just outside the storefront. Spring had fully arrived on St. Simon's Island, and her parents had decided it was the perfect time to refresh the store's curb appeal. That meant dragging out oversized pots, arranging fresh blooms, and attempting to make it all look effortlessly charming. Which was easier said than done when you were 5'5" and trying to move a pot that probably weighed more than you did. Susanna braced her knees, took a deep breath, and heaved. It didn't budge. "Okay, you stubborn thing," she muttered under her breath, trying again, this time with a grunt and a very unladylike knee shove. "You look like you're about to lose a fight with that planter." Startled, Susanna looked up and squinted into the sunlight. A man stood at the edge of the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching her with a friendly smile that bordered on teasing. He was tall, dressed in a casual blue button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, jeans, and that kind of easy confidence that only came from someone who was definitely not from around here. His accent, softly British with a trace of something else, immediately caught her ear. "Would you like a hand?" he offered, stepping closer. She hesitated for a split second. Her mama always said not to accept help from strangers, but the man looked harmless enough. And honestly, she wasn't about to throw her back out before lunchtime. "Sure," she said with a small laugh. "Just don't tell my pride." He smiled again, kneeling beside the planter. "We'll consider it a tactical alliance." Together, they lifted the pot and scooted it into place with relative ease. As they finished, Susanna brushed her hands on her jeans and turned to him. Thanks. I'm Susanna, by the way. Nate, he said, offering a handshake. His grip was firm but warm. Just visiting the island for a bit. Vacation? She asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Something like that, he replied, his tone vague but polite. You live here? All my life. That's my family's store, she said, pointing toward the shop. We sell plants, flowers, and the occasional garden gnome. He glanced at the storefront, then back at her. It suits you. Susanna raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? Grounded. Natural. Beautiful, he said with a wink, light enough to be charming, but not overconfident. Susanna felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Was this man flirting with her? She'd barely taken off her breakup sweats. Well, she said, trying to recover, if you're planning to be in town a while, stop by again. We offer a loyalty card and unsolicited life advice. Nate chuckled. I'll keep that in mind. With a casual wave, he turned and walked off down the sidewalk, disappearing behind the bakery on the corner. Susanna watched him go, puzzled and amused, and for the first time in weeks, her heart gave a tiny flutter. She shook her head with a smile. Nope, she murmured to herself. Too soon. But she couldn't help the thought that maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet. The next afternoon, as Susanna arranged a bouquet of peonies for a walk-in customer, the familiar jingle of the shop bell made her glance up. There he was again, Nate, the mystery man with the easy smile and rolled-up sleeves. This time, he wore a soft gray t-shirt and sunglasses perched on top of his head. He looked like someone who belonged on the cover of a coastal travel brochure. Well, Susanna said, her mouth tugging into a smile, either you're lost, or the garden gnomes called you back. Nate held up a modest bundle of wildflowers. Thought I'd return the favor. A thank you for saving me from a boring afternoon. She accepted the flowers, touched by the gesture. Sweet of you. Very unexpected. Most of our customers just say thank you with potting soil. He grinned. I aim to raise the bar. She motioned toward the back patio of the shop, where a small seating area overlooked a quiet stretch of marsh. I was just about to take a break. Want to sit for a minute? Nate agreed, and they stepped into the sunlight, surrounded by the hum of bees and the rustle of Spanish moss in the trees. The garden behind the shop was a labor of love, Susanna's favorite part of the business. It was peaceful, blooming with lavender, climbing roses, and native grasses that danced in the breeze. You really do live in paradise, Nate said, settling into a wicker chair. It's like something out of a southern fairy tale. I try not to take it for granted, she said, handing him a glass of sweet tea she'd poured earlier. But I've always been more of a realist than a dreamer. He took a sip. And yet, you work in a garden. She tilted her head. Touché. I guess I like watching things grow. It's grounding. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, mutual understanding. Comfort. Chemistry. I used to help my mother in her greenhouse, Nate said, setting the glass down. She grew the most absurd varieties of orchids, half of them never bloomed, but she said trying was the point. That sounds like something my granddad would have said, Susanna replied. He once tried to grow a lemon tree in a bathtub just because someone said it couldn't be done. Nate chuckled. Was he successful? Depends who you ask. We got one lemon. It was the size of a walnut. They both laughed, and the conversation flowed easily from there. Travel, childhood memories, favorite plants. Nate loved jasmine. Susanna swore by rosemary, and even a light debate over the superior garden glove brand. Still, Susanna noticed something quietly mysterious about him. He never mentioned where he was staying, or what exactly brought him to St. Simon's Island. And when she asked about his job, he smiled and said, "Oh, a bit of this and that. Paperwork. Suits. Boring things." But his eyes held something deeper, like there were pages of his story he wasn't ready to share just yet. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Nate stood and offered his hand. "Thank you for the tea, and the company. I don't usually meet such interesting people on vacation." Susanna took his hand, standing as well. "And I don't usually chat with strangers who carry wildflowers." Nate held her gaze for a second longer than necessary. "Then I suppose we're both breaking tradition." He tipped an invisible hat and disappeared down the path once more, leaving Susanna standing among the blooms with the faintest flutter in her chest. She wasn't sure who Nate really was, but something about him felt important. And maybe, just maybe, the universe was starting to bloom again. 2 days later, Susanna stood at the kitchen counter of her parents' house, packing deviled eggs into a floral ceramic dish while Avery wrapped sandwiches in wax paper behind her. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Avery asked, glancing at her older sister with a curious grin. "Inviting a charming stranger I barely know to our family picnic?" Susanna replied. "Nope. Probably terrible. But it feels right." Avery arched an eyebrow. "You realize Mom's going to go into full interrogation mode." "Yep," Susanna said, trying to sound casual. "And Dad's probably already sharpening his fishing knife." "Cool. Just making sure we're all clear." That afternoon, under the sprawling canopy of Lover's Oak, a massive, centuries-old tree draped in Spanish moss and local legend, the Truitt family laid out quilts, lemonade, and laughter. The spot was a favorite picnic place, and the lore said couples who shared a kiss beneath the branches would find everlasting love. Susanna had never paid much attention to the story. Until now. Nate arrived a few minutes late, dressed in khaki pants and a soft white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He carried a small box of shortbread cookies from a local bakery and looked charmingly unsure of himself, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning for familiar faces. Susanna waved him over, and he approached with a warm, almost bashful smile. "Hope I'm not intruding." "Too late now," Avery called from the quilt. "We brought deviled eggs. That makes you family." Introductions were made quickly, and though Susanna's mom tried to keep things polite, her eyes were already darting between Nate and Susanna like she was solving a mystery. Her dad asked him about his background, his travels, and whether he liked sweet tea or the wrong kind. Through it all, Nate answered with easy charm, dodging questions that edged too close to personal details while genuinely laughing at Mr. Truitt's fishing stories and complimenting Mrs. Truitt's potato salad like a seasoned Southern gentleman. After a while, the conversation drifted, and Susanna and Nate wandered toward the edge of the clearing. They found a spot where the ground was dappled with golden sunlight, and the low branches of the oak rustled in the wind. "Does your family always do picnics like this?" Nate asked, sitting beside her on a mossy tree root. "Only when they sense I might be getting serious about someone." He glanced at her, half amused, half curious. "And are you?" Susanna looked away for a moment, watching the wind catch in the moss overhead. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I wasn't looking for anything." Not after everything with Adam. But you make things feel lighter. Easier. Nate smiled gently. You do the same for me. They sat in comfortable silence for a beat, listening to the distant laughter of her parents and the hum of bees in the trees. Then Nate glanced up at the branches. So, this is the infamous Lover's Oak. Susanna laughed softly. The legend says if two people kiss beneath it, they're destined to stay in love forever. Nate raised an eyebrow. Is that a challenge or a tourist trap? Depends who's asking. He leaned in slightly, and Susanna's heart skipped. The air between them felt heavy with anticipation, but not rushed, just full of possibility. I won't kiss you just because of some legend, he said, voice low. But I'd like to kiss you because I want to. She looked into his eyes, her breath catching. Then do. And he did, soft and gentle at first, as if asking for permission, then deeper, with a quiet intensity that made her forget everything else. When they pulled away, Susanna smiled, wide-eyed and breathless. I'm probably going to overthink this later. Then I'll have to kiss you again until you stop. They both laughed, and for the first time in a long while, Susanna felt something stirring deep in her chest. Not the ache of a broken heart, but the spark of something new, something real. Beneath the Lover's Oak, something had changed. Something had begun. The golden hour sun cast a warm glow across the clearing beneath the Lover's Oak, turning the scene into something straight out of a southern romance novel. Susanna and Nate sat close together, their hands brushing lightly between them, laughter shared over some half-joking comment Nate had made about trying boiled peanuts for the first time. It was one of those rare moments where time seemed to pause, where nothing mattered but the stillness, the breeze, and the way his eyes lingered on hers just a heartbeat longer than they should have. A faint click echoed from the distance. Neither of them noticed it at first. But just beyond the picnic area, hidden discreetly behind a stand of azaleas in full bloom, a young woman with a long lens camera adjusted her focus and captured the shot again, Susanna leaning in toward Nate, their foreheads nearly touching beneath the draping moss of the ancient tree. The photo was perfect. Dreamlike. Almost staged in its beauty. But when Nate suddenly stiffened beside Susanna, she turned to him. What's wrong? He was no longer smiling. His easygoing expression faded into something tight and distant, like a switch had flipped inside him. His gaze flicked toward the azaleas, where the movement had come from, and then back to her. Did you see that? He asked quietly. See what? I thought I saw someone. Never mind. He stood abruptly, brushing imaginary dirt from his trousers and scanning the area once more. Susanna rose slowly. Nate, you're starting to act like you're being followed. He looked back at her, schooling his features into a casual smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Just instinct, I guess. Probably nothing. She narrowed her eyes slightly. You sure about that? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin the mood. He glanced once more at the azaleas. I've just had situations before where privacy gets complicated. Her brow furrowed, confused. You're on vacation. Who would be taking your picture? He hesitated, then offered a half-hearted shrug. Maybe just someone who liked the look of the oak. It's a local legend, right? Susanna nodded, but the tension lingered. Nate's body language was off, his shoulders too stiff, his smile too rehearsed. And while she didn't want to pry, the sudden shift in him made her feel like she was staring at a beautiful puzzle with a missing piece. Maybe I should head back, Nate said after a moment, voice quieter than before. "Thank your family for me?" She nodded slowly, watching him retreat across the field. He turned once to glance back at her, his expression unreadable, and then disappeared down the dirt path, the fading light casting long shadows behind him. Susanna stood under the tree a little longer, the air around her cooler than before, and the legend of the lover's oak whispering in her ears like a question. What secrets was he hiding? And why did a single photograph seem to shake him to the core? Susanna's phone buzzed relentlessly the next morning as she flipped the "closed" sign on the garden shop door, her arms full of fresh-cut dahlias. She barely had time to set them down before her sister Avery burst in through the back, holding her phone in one hand and looking half stunned, half exhilarated. "Have you seen this?" Avery asked, breathless. "Seen what?" Susanna wiped her hands on her apron. Avery held up her phone. "You're trending." "What do you mean trending?" Avery thrust the screen into her hands. There, splashed across the homepage of a popular gossip site, was a photo of her and Nate, the photo, captured perfectly under the cascading moss of the lover's oak. The headline screamed in bold font, "Mystery Royal Caught in Romantic Moment with American Woman." Beneath it, a series of blurry but unmistakable photos of Nate appeared, some from their picnic, others, shockingly, from various events in what looked like Europe. One in particular showed him exiting a black car in a crisp navy suit, surrounded by suited bodyguards and flags fluttering behind him. Susanna's heart dropped into her stomach. I don't understand," she whispered. Avery scrolled further. "They say his name is Prince Nathaniel of Cambria. He's heir to the throne of some small European country. There's already speculation about who you are. Your name isn't mentioned, thank goodness, but people are digging. It's everywhere." Susanna sank into a stool, stunned. "Prince? As in, royalty? That Nate? He didn't tell you?" "No. He said he worked with paperwork and boring suits. That's not code for I rule a country. How is that something you just leave out?" Avery sat beside her, suddenly more cautious. "Maybe he was trying to protect you. Maybe he thought it was just a quiet visit. No press, no pressure. I mean, you've seen how low-key he is." Susanna ran a hand through her hair, her thoughts racing. "But he left. Last night. Just vanished. One minute we were laughing, and the next he was staring at the bushes like someone was watching him. And then this morning, boom, he's gone and the whole world knows." As she stared at the photo again, her heart twisted. That moment had been real, genuine, sweet, and unexpected. But now it felt like a scene from someone else's movie. A fairy tale she hadn't asked to star in. And yet, the look on Nate's face in the photo told a different story. He hadn't known he was being watched. The smile was real. So was the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world. Still, questions tumbled in her chest. Who was he really? Why didn't he tell her the truth? And why did he leave without a word? The only thing Susanna knew for sure was that her quiet coastal life had just been turned upside down by one photo, one kiss, and one prince with a secret crown. 2 days had passed since the photo under the lover's oak went viral, and Susanna's world felt like it had flipped on its axis. She couldn't leave the house without someone whispering, glancing, or outright asking, "So, who is he really?" She'd tried calling Nate, texting him, anything, but the silence on the other end was deafening. Then, late one rainy afternoon, while restocking fertilizer at the back of the garden shop, the bell above the front door jingled sharply. Avery rushed in, clutching a folded newspaper and an expression that made Susanna drop what she was holding. "You need to read this. Now." Susanna took the paper with trembling hands and unfolded it. Right on the front page of the Brighton Royal News, under a regal crest and a gilded frame, was a full-color photo of Prince Nathaniel, in a formal military-style suit. He stood at a grand podium in front of a palace, flanked by royal guards and international flags, speaking to a crowd of reporters. Prince Nathaniel returns to Brighton for emergency coronation preparations. The subheading made her stomach twist. Heir apparent called home amid royal crisis. American tourist caught in the middle. Susanna blinked. Brighton? That's his country? It's tiny, Avery said. But it's real. Nestled between France and Belgium. Like fairy tale tiny. As Susanna scanned the article, the pieces finally started clicking into place. The polished manners, the diplomatic way he dodged questions, the sudden disappearance after the photo leaked. He hadn't just ghosted her, he'd been called back. Called home to be king. A sharp pain settled in Susanna's chest. Why didn't he tell me? Probably because he couldn't, Avery said gently. I mean, imagine the pressure. You think he expected to meet you under some big mossy tree in Georgia? Probably thought it would just be a quiet holiday. Susanna sank into a chair behind the checkout counter, her hands still gripping the newspaper. The man who had helped her carry flower pots, who had made her laugh over barbecue sandwiches and kissed her under the lover's oak, he wasn't just some mysterious tourist. He was Prince Nathaniel of Brighton. And he was about to become king. And she? She was just a garden shop girl with muddy boots and a broken heart. He's gone, isn't he? She murmured. Avery didn't answer. She didn't have to. Susanna looked back down at the photo, Nate's face serious, focused, royal, and wondered if the man she knew in Georgia was still somewhere behind that crown. Or if he'd only ever existed for a moment, under a tree, before reality came calling. The next morning, the sleepy charm of St. Simon's Island evaporated. News vans lined the narrow street outside Truitt's garden and gifts, their satellite dishes aimed at the sky like mechanical sunflowers. Reporters in crisp suits and overexcited interns with notepads swarmed the parking lot, clutching microphones and snapping photos of anything that moved, including the hand-painted "Fresh Basil Today" sign on the door. Inside, Susanna peeked through the blinds and immediately pulled back, heart racing. They're everywhere, she whispered, ducking down behind the herb seed display. Avery stood at the window with arms crossed, surveying the chaos like a general. They camped out before dawn. One of them asked if you'd already picked out a dress for the royal wedding. I told him we were still deciding between flannel and camo. Susanna groaned from behind the display. I feel like a zoo animal. Their dad, steady and unbothered as always, walked past with a tray of succulents. You want me to go out there and spray them with the hose? Avery brightened. Oh, please do. But Susanna didn't laugh. She curled her knees to her chest, her apron still covered in soil from this morning's early work before the press siege began. Her stomach twisted with nerves, her mind still grappling with how quickly everything had spiraled. Yesterday, she was pruning petunias and trying to forget a prince. Today, the entire world wanted to know what she was wearing, thinking, feeling. She was just a normal girl, she heard a reporter saying outside. Small-town charm meets international royalty. This is the stuff Hallmark movies are made of. Great, Susanna muttered. I've become a cliché. Avery knelt beside her, her expression softening. You didn't ask for this, Sus. None of it. And it's okay to hide for a little while. Let them talk. Eventually, they'll move on to something else. Susanna nodded slowly, but her heart wasn't convinced. It wasn't just the cameras. It was the way everything felt suddenly too big. Too loud. Too far removed from the quiet, simple life she had rebuilt after losing the future she thought she had with her ex. And now, a new, impossible future loomed in the form of a crown and a man whose name still lingered on her lips. Prince Nathaniel. Had their connection meant anything? Had she just been a passing moment in a story far grander than hers? A knock at the back door startled them both. They turned, but it wasn't a reporter. It was a man in a dark suit, holding an envelope with a royal crest embossed in gold. He met Susanna's eyes, bowed slightly, and said, "Miss Truitt, I have a personal message from His Royal Highness, Prince Nathaniel of Brighton." Across the Atlantic, the skies over Brighton were gray with morning. The palace flags flew at half-staff, and black crepe adorned the gates of the royal estate. Inside, the ornate halls were silent, the usual clatter of aides and staff hushed by grief. Prince Nathaniel stood at the window of his father's study, now his, gazing out over the manicured palace gardens he had once run through as a boy. The king was gone. And now, Nathaniel was next in line. The funeral had been dignified and somber, as expected. Thousands of citizens lined the streets to pay their respects. World leaders sent condolences. The royal council immediately shifted focus to the upcoming coronation, the smooth transition of power. But Nathaniel felt none of it had truly registered. He hadn't just lost a father, he'd lost the only man who understood the burden that now lay on his shoulders. Behind him, his younger sister, Princess Amelia, entered quietly. "They're ready for you in the East Chamber," she said. Another meeting with the council. Nathaniel didn't turn around. Another round of deciding how I'm meant to live my life. Amelia crossed the room and stood beside him, her gaze sharp but understanding. "This isn't just your life anymore. It's the crown's." He exhaled slowly. "That's the problem." She studied him carefully. "Is this about her?" Nathaniel didn't answer at first, but his eyes gave him away. "Susanna." Her laughter still echoed in his mind, the way she teased him about his lack of gardening skills, the quiet way she'd watched butterflies flit through the zinnias. She had no idea who he really was, and for the first time in years, he had forgotten who he was too. With her, he'd just been Nate. Not His Royal Highness, not the heir apparent, not a political symbol. Just a man. Falling in love. "I should have told her," he finally said. "She deserved to know." "She knows now," Amelia replied softly. "The whole world does." That fact hit him like a punch in the chest. He'd seen the headlines, the chaos outside her family's shop. He'd wanted to call, to explain, to apologize, but every word felt inadequate. And with the country in mourning and the council pushing him toward the throne, he'd had no time, no space, and no permission to be anything other than what was expected. Still, every moment without her felt like a betrayal of his own heart. She wouldn't want this life, he said, more to himself than to his sister. Paparazzi. Protocols. 1,000 rules for how to smile, speak, even breathe. "Maybe not," Amelia said gently. "But maybe she'd want to." He turned to her, finally, torn between duty and desire. "I don't know if I can have both." She gave a soft, sad smile. Then you'll have to decide what kind of king you want to be." As Amelia left, the grand clock chimed the hour. Coronation preparations continued, the palace humming with tradition and expectation. But Nathaniel remained still, heart anchored an ocean away, beneath a tree wrapped in moss, where a girl in muddy boots had unknowingly captured a prince's heart. Back in St. Simon's Island, the storm of royal headlines swirling around Susanna showed no signs of calming. Yet, the girl who had once dreamed of a quiet life was learning the art of holding steady amid chaos. With Nate, Prince Nathaniel, gone, and her own heart tangled in questions she couldn't yet answer, Susanna buried herself in the one thing that still felt real, her family's garden store. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise, inhaling the earthy scent of fresh soil and blooming flowers. The familiar rhythm of tending plants, arranging bouquets, and greeting loyal customers grounded her like nothing else could. Here, beneath strings of fairy lights and the soft hum of cicadas, Susanna found peace. "Hey, boss," Avery called from the counter, waving a clipboard. "We need to reorder the petunias and that new heirloom tomato. And we've got a shipment of orchids coming next week." Susanna smiled faintly, grateful for the normalcy. "Got it. I'll make the calls." Even the relentless media frenzy couldn't touch the small sanctuary of the greenhouse, where Susanna carefully watered seedlings and whispered encouragement to fragile sprouts. She liked to think they thrived because of her steady hands, and maybe a little hope. But at night, when the store closed and the sun dipped behind the live oaks, Susanna's thoughts drifted. What did it mean that the man she'd met was a prince? That a royal coronation was looming without her? And most painfully, what would happen if she was expected to leave everything she knew behind? Her parents noticed the quiet changes, the way she flinched when the doorbell jingled unexpectedly, or how she sometimes stared out the window as if waiting for something impossible. "We'll get through this," her mother said gently one evening, placing a comforting hand on Susanna's shoulder. "One day at a time." Susanna nodded, but the knot in her chest tightened. She wanted to believe in happy endings, but right now, her future looked like a tangle of thorny vines. Still, as she arranged a new display of sunflowers, she made herself a silent promise. No matter what happened, she would keep growing. Like the garden she loved, she would find a way to bloom. One quiet afternoon, just as Susanna was closing up the shop, Avery waved an envelope with a flourish. Guess what showed up? Susanna wiped her hands on her apron, her heart skipping before she saw the elegant handwriting on the cream-colored stationery. The royal crest embossed in gold shimmered under the shop's soft lighting. She hesitated, fingers trembling as she broke the seal and unfolded the letter. "Dear Susanna, I owe you 1,000 apologies. For keeping secrets, for disappearing, for the whirlwind I brought into your life. I never meant to hurt you. These past days, since returning home, I have felt the weight of my crown more heavily than ever. But amidst the duty and the expectations, my thoughts keep coming back to you, your laughter, your kindness, your strength. It is with hope and courage that I invite you to Brighton to attend my coronation. I want you to see the world I come from, to decide for yourself if there could ever be a place for you there. Know this, whether you come or not, you have changed my life in ways no throne ever could. With all my heart, Nathaniel." Susanna's breath caught. The invitation was more than a chance to witness a royal ceremony. It was an opening, a bridge between two worlds that seemed so impossible to cross. Tears blurred the edges of the letter as a flicker of hope ignited inside her. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter? One written not by duty, but by choice. Avery grinned. "Well? Are you going to go?" Susanna folded the letter carefully, a quiet smile breaking through. Maybe I am. That evening, Susanna sat on the porch swing of her childhood home, the letter from Nate resting on her lap. The sun dipped low, casting golden light over the moss-draped oaks. Her best friend, Claire, joined her with 2 cups of sweet tea, settling beside her with a warm smile. "So?" Claire asked, nudging Susanna gently. "What's the verdict?" Susanna sighed, tracing the royal crest on the envelope. "It feels like stepping into a whole other world, one I don't know if I belong in." Claire chuckled softly. "Yeah, I get that. But Sus, love rarely follows a neat plan." Susanna looked up, eyes searching. "What if I'm not enough? What if the crown, the palace, the expectations, what if they swallow me whole?" Claire reached over, squeezing her hand. "You're not the girl who waited around for a high school sweetheart to propose, only to be left heartbroken. You're stronger than that." And Nate, he saw that strength. She paused, eyes twinkling with conviction. "This isn't just about a coronation or royal duties. It's about you choosing your own story." Susanna swallowed hard. "But what if it's not the right choice?" Claire smiled, the kind of smile that's both teasing and true. "Then you make a new one. But you won't know until you try." The words settled in Susanna's heart like sunlight through leaves. "Maybe it's time," she whispered. Claire raised her cup. "To new beginnings." Susanna smiled, clinking her cup softly against Claire's. "To love, even when it's unexpected." The moment Susanna's plane touched down in Brighton, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her, though none were visible. The city was alive with a mixture of celebration and solemnity, its streets decked in royal banners and flowers. Stepping off the private jet onto the marble steps of the palace, Susanna's breath caught. The grandeur was overwhelming. Towers rose like the spires of a cathedral, their gilded edges shimmering in the sunlight. Gardens stretched endlessly, bursting with blooms more vibrant and exotic than anything she'd seen back home. The air carried a mixture of fresh blossoms and something old: history, tradition, duty. She was no longer in the sleepy charm of St. Simon's Island. Here, every step echoed with centuries of royal legacy. Nate greeted her at the palace entrance, dressed in a tailored suit that perfectly balanced regal elegance with approachable warmth. "Welcome to Brighton," he said with a smile that softened the imposing surroundings. Susanna looked up at him, eyes wide. It's like stepping into a storybook." He chuckled. "Only the beginning." As they walked through the grand hallways, Susanna's heart raced with excitement and nerves. She was a small-town girl standing in a palace fit for kings and queens, and somehow, she was invited to be part of it all. For the first time in a long time, the impossible felt possible. Susanna's first morning at the palace dawned bright but daunting. After a restless night spent staring at the ornate ceiling of her guest chambers, she dressed carefully in a modest but elegant outfit Nate's assistant had suggested. Every fabric, every fold felt foreign against her skin, so different from the comfortable cotton dresses she wore back home. As she descended the grand staircase, the marble steps echoing beneath her feet, she was met by a group of royal staff, the palace housekeeper, the head of protocol, and several aides in crisply pressed uniforms. Their smiles were polite but guarded, their eyes appraising. "Good morning, Miss Truitt," the head of protocol said, her voice clipped but courteous. "We trust you slept well?" Susanna nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you. It's all very impressive." The housekeeper offered a warm, if practiced, smile. We'll be happy to assist you during your stay. There are certain customs and traditions you'll want to observe to help you settle in." As she followed them through the sprawling corridors, Susanna tried to keep pace, her heels clicking nervously on the polished floors. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors stared down from gilded frames, their eyes seeming to measure her worth. In the grand dining hall, tables were arranged with impeccable precision. Crystal glasses shimmered alongside delicate china, and silverware gleamed under the grand chandeliers. A dozen nobles in perfectly tailored suits and gowns gathered, their conversations hushed and laced with subtle intrigue. Susanna felt like an outsider in a world where every gesture and glance carried meaning she didn't yet understand. When introduced to a circle of nobles, she smiled shyly but felt tongue-tied as the conversation veered toward topics like ancient royal lineage, palace politics, and treaty negotiations, subjects far removed from her life of gardening and small-town struggles. One noblewoman's smile was thin and measured, her eyes flickering with thinly veiled judgment. "So, Miss Truitt, I hear you come from quite humble beginnings," she said, her tone laced with a hint of condescension. "It must be quite an adjustment to find yourself here among royalty." Susanna's cheeks warmed, but she refused to retreat. "It's certainly a different world, but I'm grateful to be here and to learn." As the day wore on, the rigid formality of palace life began to press on her. Protocol meetings, etiquette lessons, rehearsals for the coronation ceremony, all required her full attention and constant vigilance. Every word she spoke, every smile she offered, was scrutinized. Still, beneath the stiffness, Susanna noticed moments of genuine kindness, from the quiet palace chef who shared stories of his own humble roots, to the gardener who invited her to help tend the palace's ancient rose bushes. These small connections reminded her that even within the grandeur and tradition, there was room for warmth and friendship. By evening, as Susanna stood once more in the palace gardens beneath a sky heavy with stars, she allowed herself a deep breath. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was determined to face it, one step, one moment at a time. Nate's smile was genuine and wide as he spotted Susanna waiting by the palace gates. After days of royal formalities and stiff ceremonies, this moment felt like a breath of fresh air. "Susanna," he greeted, taking her hand gently. "I'm so glad you're here." She returned his smile, the warmth between them easing the tension that had built up inside her. They left the palace behind and stepped out into the bustling streets of Brighton, a city alive with history and vibrant charm. Cobblestone paths wound between quaint shops, colorful markets, and cozy cafes that smelled of freshly baked bread. As they walked, Nate let his guard down, sharing stories that felt like treasures hidden beneath the weight of his royal title. He spoke of childhood adventures in the palace gardens, of lessons learned from his late father, and of the burdens and hopes that came with the crown. Susanna listened, her eyes reflecting a newfound admiration. "I never knew a prince could be so real," she admitted softly. Nate chuckled. "Neither did I until I met you." They stopped by a small flower shop, where Susanna's eyes lit up at the familiar scents and colors. "Let me buy you something," Nate offered. She picked a single wildflower, a simple, unpretentious bloom, and smiled. "It reminds me of home." They found a quiet bench overlooking the harbor, where honest conversations flowed easily. They spoke of dreams, fears, and the uncertain futures that awaited them both. Susanna shared her heartbreak, her hopes to rebuild, and the surprise of finding someone like Nate. He confessed the loneliness that came with royal duty and his desire to live a life guided by love, not just obligation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the water, they realized that despite their different worlds, their hearts beat with the same hopeful rhythm. In that moment, Brighton felt less like a kingdom of tradition and more like the place where their story truly began. The ornate drawing room was softly lit by afternoon sun filtering through heavy velvet drapes. The scent of jasmine tea mingled with the faint perfume of roses from the garden. Susanna sat nervously on the edge of a gilded chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across from her, Queen Isadora regarded her with a composed, almost unreadable expression. "Miss Truitt," the Queen began, her voice smooth and carefully measured, "it is a pleasure to welcome you to Brighton." Susanna bowed her head politely. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I'm honored to be here." The Queen smiled thinly, setting down her porcelain teacup. "You must understand, entering this world is not without its challenges. Royal life demands sacrifice, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to duty." Susanna nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Your relationship with my son," the Queen continued, "is unconventional. It will be scrutinized not only by the public but by the entire realm." The words hung heavily in the air. "I admire your courage," the Queen added, "but I must caution you, love alone is often not enough to withstand the weight of a crown." Susanna's gaze dropped to her hands. "I understand, Your Majesty. But I believe in the man Nate is beneath the title, and in the woman I can become with him." The Queen's eyes softened for a brief moment before regaining their regal steel. "Very well. But know this, Miss Truitt, Brighton is a kingdom steeped in tradition. To thrive here, one must learn to navigate its intricate rules, and be prepared for the sacrifices that come with it." As the tea was poured again, Susanna realized that this meeting was a quiet test, a challenge she would need to face if she hoped to build a future with Nate. That evening, Susanna sat by the grand window of her guest room, staring out at the sprawling palace grounds bathed in silver moonlight. The beauty of Brighton's night was undeniable, but her heart was heavy. The Queen's words echoed relentlessly in her mind. Love alone is often not enough. The weight of expectations, the unyielding traditions, and the glaring spotlight of royal scrutiny pressed down on her like a storm cloud. She had come here with hope and excitement, but now the reality seemed overwhelming. Could she truly belong in a world so different from the one she'd always known? Could she be the kind of woman Nate needed, the kind that the kingdom would accept? The thought of returning to the simple, familiar comfort of St. Simon's Island was tempting. Just as she was about to reach for her phone to call her parents, a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Nate entered quietly, closing the door behind him. His eyes searched hers, filled with a mix of concern and determination. "Susanna," he began gently, "I heard about your meeting with my mother." She looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "She's right, Nate. This life, it's not easy. I don't know if I'm ready for it." He took a step closer, his voice lowering with sincerity. "You don't have to be ready all at once. No one expects you to be perfect." Susanna's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "But what if I can't live up to what's expected? What if I disappoint you, or the kingdom?" Nate reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I don't care about perfection. I care about you, the woman I've fallen in love with." He paused, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "From the moment we met under the Lover's Oak, I knew there was something different about you. You see me, not just the prince, but the man behind the title." Susanna's breath hitched as he continued, "I want you by my side, not because you fit some royal mold, but because you're the one who makes me feel whole." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she reached out to hold his hands tightly. "I love you, Susanna. More than duty. More than tradition. And I'll fight to make this work, if you'll stay with me." The walls Susanna had built around her heart began to crumble. In that quiet, tender moment, beneath the weight of crown and expectation, love found its way. She nodded, voice barely a whisper, "I'll stay. With you." The morning sun barely filtered through the grand windows of the palace as Susanna sipped her tea, hoping for a quiet start to the day. But the peaceful moment shattered when a flurry of urgent knocks sounded at the door. Nate entered, his face clouded with frustration and concern. In his hand, he held the latest issue of the Brighton Gazette, its headline screaming in bold red letters, "Royal Scandal: The Truth About Prince Nathaniel's American Flame." Susanna's heart sank as she read the article, which dredged up exaggerated claims about her family's modest background and insinuated scandalous rumors about her past. The court, once a place of poised elegance, buzzed with whispered gossip and sideways glances. Courtiers exchanged knowing smiles, their eyes sharp with judgment. The Queen's composed facade barely concealed a flicker of disapproval. Susanna felt every stare like 1,000 tiny needles, and the weight of unwanted scrutiny pressed down hard. She was no longer just Nate's girlfriend, she was a target. Word reached Nate quickly, and he confronted the reporters with a firm statement, defending Susanna's character and standing by her side with unwavering resolve. Yet, the damage rippled through the palace halls. Friends of the royal family offered cautious words, some questioning Nate's judgment, others expressing sympathy for Susanna's plight. Through it all, Susanna grappled with doubt. The life she had dared to dream of suddenly seemed so far away. But Nate's presence was a steady anchor in the storm. "We'll face this together," he promised, gripping her hand tightly. "The truth about you is the only one that matters to me." Though the whispers swirled around them, their bond grew stronger, ready to withstand the harsh glare of the spotlight and the trials that lay ahead. The weight of the scandal pressed heavily on Susanna's shoulders. The once warm smiles from the palace staff now felt cold and distant. She could sense the judgment lurking in every whispered conversation, every averted glance. Late that evening, alone in her chamber, Susanna packed a small bag. The familiar ache of heartbreak resurfaced stronger than before. Maybe she wasn't meant for this life, for the palace, the crown, or the endless scrutiny. Her fingers trembled as she folded a simple blouse, her mind swirling with doubt and pain. Just as she zipped up her bag, a soft knock interrupted the quiet. Nate stepped inside, his expression earnest and desperate. "Susanna, please don't do this," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I know it's hard. I know they're making it harder. But I'm asking for one more chance. Just one." She looked up, eyes brimming with tears. "Nate, it's not just the gossip. It's everything, the expectations, the judgment. I'm scared I'll never belong here." He crossed the room and took her hands gently. "You belong with me. Not because of where we are, but because of who we are together. I love you for you, not the rumors, not the titles." Susanna's defenses wavered as she saw the sincerity in his eyes. "Give me one more chance," Nate pleaded. "Let's face this storm side by side. We can find a way, together." Tears spilled freely down her cheeks as she nodded slowly, hope flickering amid the hurt. In that moment, love proved stronger than fear. And Susanna chose to believe in their future, no matter how uncertain. The grand hall was filled with flashing cameras and murmuring reporters, their eager faces waiting for a statement. The royal press conference was set to address the recent scandal, and all eyes were on Prince Nathaniel. Nate stepped up to the podium, calm and resolute. The chatter hushed as he glanced at the sea of expectant faces. He took a deep breath, then spoke clearly and passionately. "Thank you all for being here. I want to address the recent rumors regarding my relationship with Susanna Truitt." His voice rang with conviction. Susanna is a remarkable woman, kind, strong, and genuine. She is not defined by her background or by gossip. She is defined by her character, which I have come to love deeply. The room stirred, some reporters nodding, others visibly surprised by his directness. I am aware that our relationship challenges tradition. But I am not just a prince bound by protocol. I am a man who follows his heart. He paused, eyes scanning the crowd. I ask you to respect Susanna and our commitment. We will face whatever challenges come with honesty and courage. Together. Cameras flashed furiously as reporters scribbled notes and whispered among themselves. Backstage, Susanna listened via video feed, her heart soaring with pride and gratitude. Nate's words were a shield against the storm, a promise that love would guide their path. That day marked a turning point, not just for their relationship but for the future of the kingdom. Days after Nate's heartfelt press conference, the streets of Brighton began to buzz with a new energy. Conversations shifted from skepticism to curiosity, then slowly, to admiration. Susanna's humility and genuine kindness started to win over the hearts of the citizens. Articles appeared praising her down-to-earth nature, her dedication to learning about royal customs, and the grace with which she handled the relentless scrutiny. In the town's bustling marketplace, locals whispered approvingly about the girl from Georgia, who wasn't afraid to be herself amid palace grandeur. Small gestures, Susanna volunteering at local charities, attending community events, and sharing smiles with palace staff, further endeared her to the people. Nate noticed the change too. During a public appearance, cheering crowds greeted Susanna warmly, their applause sincere and heartfelt. At night, Susanna and Nate would walk along the castle gardens, marveling at the growing support. "People are seeing the real you," Nate said, squeezing her hand gently. "And they love you." Susanna smiled, a newfound confidence blossoming within her. For the first time, she felt she might truly belong, not just in Brighton, but in Nate's heart and the kingdom's future. Queen Isadora sat alone in the ornate drawing room of the palace, the flickering fireplace casting warm shadows on the gilded walls. She was a woman shaped by duty and tradition, her life devoted to preserving the royal legacy. Yet lately, the steady resolve she wore like armor had begun to show cracks. For weeks, she had watched Susanna Truitt, a woman unlike any royal bride she had envisioned for her son. Susanna was neither of noble birth nor versed in courtly etiquette, yet there was something undeniably genuine about her. More than that, there was the undeniable love between Susanna and Nate. Isadora recalled the recent public appearances, the way Susanna had handled herself with quiet dignity despite the swirling gossip and relentless scrutiny. Her humility, strength, and sincere warmth had begun to soften even the most skeptical courtiers. That afternoon, the Queen summoned her trusted lady-in-waiting, Lady Marybeth, who had been quietly observing the young woman as well. "Marybeth," Isadora began thoughtfully, "I must confess, my heart is conflicted. I had expected a bride of impeccable pedigree, schooled in every custom and rule. But Susanna, she has a grace that no court lesson can teach." Marybeth nodded gently. "Her love for Prince Nathaniel is unmistakable, Your Majesty. And the people are beginning to accept her as one of their own." Isadora sighed, her fingers lightly tracing the embroidery on her sleeve. "I want what is best for my son and the kingdom. Tradition has its place, but perhaps there is room for a different kind of strength." Love, even if unexpected, might be that strength. Later, as she watched Nate and Susanna from a distance, laughing quietly during a stroll in the palace gardens, the Queen felt a flicker of hope. Could this American woman, with her simple kindness and unwavering courage, be the partner to guide her son and the kingdom into a new era? With a slow, deliberate breath, Queen Isadora began to let go of rigid expectations. The love she saw before her was real, powerful, and perhaps, just perhaps, exactly what Brighton needed. She rose, determination settling in her eyes. It was time to offer her blessing, not out of obligation, but from a place of genuine acceptance. The grand ballroom shimmered with chandeliers casting a warm golden glow over elegantly dressed guests. The charity ball was Brighton's social event of the season, a night where the kingdom's elite gathered for a noble cause, and tonight, Susanna and Nate were the center of attention. Susanna had spent the afternoon nervously preparing, her gown simple yet elegant, a soft blue that complemented her eyes. She felt the familiar flutter of nerves as they entered the room, but Nate's reassuring smile calmed her. Throughout the evening, they mingled gracefully, Susanna surprising many with her quick wit and genuine interest in the guests' stories. Nate's pride in her was unmistakable, his protective arm lightly around her waist. When the orchestra struck up a slow, lilting waltz, Nate extended his hand. "May I have this dance?" Susanna hesitated, then placed her hand in his. As they moved to the center of the ballroom, the world seemed to fall away. The music wrapped around them like a gentle embrace, their steps perfectly in sync. Nate's eyes searched hers, filled with admiration and a tenderness that took her breath away. "You're incredible, Susanna." She smiled softly, heart pounding. "I never imagined I'd be here, dancing with a prince." "Neither did I," he admitted, "but I can't imagine being anywhere else." Around them, the guests faded into a blur as they lost themselves in the moment. Their connection, once tentative, now burned bright and undeniable. As the final notes of the waltz echoed, Nate dipped Susanna slightly, their eyes locking in a silent promise. In that dance, amid the glittering chandeliers and the watchful eyes of the kingdom, their love became impossible to deny. The grand chamber of the royal council was imposing, high ceilings adorned with intricate tapestries, long polished tables lined with stern-faced nobles and advisors. The air was thick with tradition and expectation. Susanna stepped inside, her heart pounding but her head held high. This was her moment to prove she belonged not just beside Nate, but as a worthy partner in the kingdom's future. As she approached the council, Queen Isadora gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. Susanna took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice steady and clear. "Your Majesties, esteemed members of the council, thank you for allowing me this opportunity." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I come from a simple background, but I have learned that strength, integrity, and love are what truly build a foundation, whether in a home or a kingdom. I do not claim to have noble blood or royal experience, but I bring dedication, compassion, and a willingness to serve." Some council members exchanged skeptical glances, but Susanna pressed on. "I believe that the heart of any kingdom is its people. I want to listen, to learn, and to support Prince Nathaniel as he leads Brighton into a future where tradition and progress walk hand in hand." Her gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. "I promise to honor this role with humility and courage. Together, with the prince and all of you, I hope to contribute to a kingdom where every citizen feels valued." A moment of silence followed. Then the council chair, Lord Pembroke, spoke gravely but respectfully. "Miss Truitt, your words show wisdom and spirit. It is clear you understand the gravity of this position. We will consider your place in our future carefully." Susanna bowed her head slightly, gratitude swelling in her chest. As she exited the chamber, Nate was waiting with a proud smile. "You were incredible." Susanna smiled back, feeling stronger than ever. This was only the beginning, but she was ready. The great cathedral of Brighton was alive with anticipation, its towering stained glass windows casting colorful light across the gathered crowd. Nobles, dignitaries, and citizens filled every pew and aisle, all united to witness a historic moment, the coronation of Prince Nathaniel as King of Brighton. Susanna stood near the front, her heart swelling with pride and emotion. Dressed elegantly yet simply, she blended into the crowd, but all eyes secretly sought her presence. The doors opened, and the royal procession began. Nate walked with regal poise, his usual warmth tempered by the weight of his new responsibility. The crown, heavy and gleaming, awaited him on a velvet cushion. As the archbishop placed the crown upon Nate's head, the cathedral erupted in applause and cheers. Nate's gaze swept the crowd until it found Susanna's. Their eyes met, and in that moment, words were unnecessary. Love, hope, and promise shone brighter than any jewel. After the ceremony, Nate approached Susanna, offering his hand. She took it, feeling the steady strength in his grip. "My queen," he whispered with a smile. Susanna's eyes glistened with tears of joy. "And I am honored." Together, they faced the cheering crowd, ready to lead Brighton into a new era, side by side, heart to heart. The celebrations after the coronation had begun to wind down, and the palace was slowly settling into a peaceful quiet. Nate led Susanna away from the glittering crowds and grand halls, through a series of winding corridors, until they stepped out into the royal garden, a private sanctuary of blooming roses and softly glowing lanterns. The evening air was cool, carrying the delicate scent of jasmine and fresh earth. The garden was alive with gentle rustling leaves and the distant hum of night creatures. It felt like a world apart from the pomp and pressure of the throne. Nate took Susanna's hand, his touch warm and reassuring. His eyes reflected the starlight above and the depth of his emotions within. "Susanna," he began, voice low and steady, "today marks a new beginning, not just for me as king, but for us." She looked up at him, heart fluttering. "Nate," he smiled, nervously reaching into his coat pocket. "I never imagined I'd find someone who could change everything, the rules, the expectations, the life I thought I was bound to live." Kneeling gently on one knee, Nate revealed a simple yet elegant ring, a band of gold with a single sapphire that mirrored the color of her eyes. "Will you marry me? Will you stand with me, not just as my queen, but as my partner, my best friend, and my greatest love?" Tears welled in Susanna's eyes as she nodded, words caught in her throat. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. "Yes, Nate." He slipped the ring onto her finger, standing to pull her into a tender embrace. Around them, the garden seemed to glow brighter, as if the flowers themselves were celebrating their love. In that quiet moment, away from the crowns and courts, Susanna and Nate embraced a future of shared dreams, challenges, and unwavering devotion. The morning after the proposal, the palace was buzzing quietly with the news that spread like wildfire. Prince Nathaniel had asked Susanna Truitt to be his bride. But the most important blessing was still to come. Queen Isadora summoned Susanna to her private sitting room, a room lined with heavy drapes, antique portraits, and the unmistakable weight of tradition. Susanna's heart raced with a mix of nerves and hope. The queen entered gracefully, her expression composed yet softer than before. "Susanna," she began, her voice calm but firm, "I have watched you closely these past weeks, from that first awkward moment at the garden store to the courage you showed before the royal council. Susanna bowed her head respectfully. Your strength, humility, and genuine love for my son have impressed me more than I expected. I see now that you are not just a companion for Nathaniel, but a partner who can stand beside him as queen. The queen extended her hand, a rare gesture of acceptance. Know that you have my blessing. May your union bring peace and joy to our kingdom. Susanna felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over her. She took the queen's hand gently, her eyes shining. Thank you, Your Majesty. I promise to honor this responsibility and serve Brighton with all my heart. As the queen nodded approvingly, Susanna realized that the walls of tradition had softened, opening a new chapter, not just for her and Nate, but for the kingdom itself. The palace halls were abuzz with activity, florists, tailors, decorators, and etiquette tutors bustling back and forth. The announcement of Susanna and Nate's engagement had sparked excitement throughout Brighton, but for Susanna, the whirlwind of preparations was both thrilling and overwhelming. Her days quickly filled with lessons on royal protocol, how to walk gracefully in ceremonial gowns, the proper way to curtsy, and even the art of responding to formal introductions. The Queen's ladies-in-waiting were patient but firm, guiding Susanna through every custom with gentle corrections. One morning, Susanna found herself seated with Madame Claudette, the palace's renowned etiquette instructor. Remember, Susanna, every gesture you make represents not only yourself but the crown you will soon wear. Precision and poise are essential. Susanna practiced smiling with ease, mastering the subtle balance between warmth and dignity. Despite the strict rules, there were moments of laughter and friendship. The ladies-in-waiting shared stories of their own wedding days, easing Susanna's nerves. Nate often visited, his presence a comforting reminder that love would be the heart of it all. Outside the formal lessons, Susanna collaborated with royal designers to create a wedding gown that blended her southern roots with Brighton's regal elegance, soft lace paired with delicate embroidery inspired by the island's wildflowers. Late at night, as she reviewed her notes on ceremonial vows and seating charts, Susanna reflected on how far she'd come, from a small garden store in Georgia to the center of a royal celebration. Though the path was steep and unfamiliar, her determination to honor both her heritage and her new role burned brighter than ever. Amid the flurry of wedding plans and royal obligations, Nate and Susanna treasured the rare pockets of quiet they could steal away together. These moments became their sanctuary, simple, unguarded, and filled with the ease that had first drawn them to each other. One evening, Nate led Susanna to a secluded spot by the cliffs overlooking the sea. The sky was painted with streaks of pink and orange as the sun dipped below the horizon, the waves crashing softly below. They sat side by side on a weathered bench, fingers intertwined, sharing stories and dreams far removed from crowns and ceremonies. You know, Nate said with a teasing smile, I never thought I'd find peace in a small garden store in Georgia. Susanna laughed softly. And I never thought I'd be preparing to marry a king. Their laughter mingled with the ocean breeze, carrying away the weight of expectations, even if only for a little while. In these quiet moments, away from royal eyes and whispered gossip, their love felt grounded and real, proof that beneath titles and traditions, it was simply Nate and Susanna, two hearts beating in sync. The soft hum of the royal carriage wheels echoed faintly outside the grand palace doors as Susanna's parents arrived, their familiar southern drawls and warm embraces wrapping around her like a comforting quilt. It had been weeks since Susanna had seen them, and their presence was a balm to her swirling thoughts and uncertainties. That evening, in a quiet sitting room adorned with velvet curtains and antique lamps, Susanna sat between her mother and father, their hands clasping hers tightly. Sugar, her mother began, eyes shining with unshed tears. We've watched you grow from a little girl who loved the garden to this strong, brave woman standing on the brink of a whole new world." Her father nodded, voice steady. "It ain't always gonna be easy, darlin'. You're stepping into a life filled with expectations and customs that might feel foreign, but remember who you are. Your heart, your kindness, that's what's brought you this far." Susanna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their faith settle within her. "Sometimes, I wonder if I'm ready. The palace is beautiful, but it's so different from home. The rules, the eyes watching every move, it's overwhelming." Her mother smiled gently. "Honey, you don't have to change who you are to fit into that world. You've got a light inside you that no crown can dim." Her father added with a chuckle, "And if anyone tries to tell you otherwise, you just remind 'em you're a Truitt from Georgia, and that means you're tougher than a $2 steak." Laughter filled the room, easing Susanna's worries. That night, as her parents stayed close, Susanna felt a renewed strength, a reminder that no matter how far life took her, the roots of love and family would always ground her. Brighton Cathedral was adorned with cascading white roses and soft candlelight, every detail reflecting the blending of tradition and Susanna's own delicate touch. The air buzzed with anticipation as dignitaries, citizens, and international guests filled the grand pews, their eyes fixed on the moment about to unfold. Susanna stood just behind the heavy oak doors, her heart pounding in rhythm with the solemn organ music echoing through the ancient stone walls. Her gown shimmered with subtle embroidery of wildflowers, a tribute to the Georgia garden store that had shaped her, and a delicate veil framed her glowing face. Taking a deep breath, she glanced toward the entrance where her father awaited, his eyes misty yet proud. As the doors slowly opened, a hush fell over the congregation. The world seemed to hold its breath as Susanna took her first step down the aisle. Her gaze met Nate's, his expression a mixture of awe, love, and unwavering devotion. For a brief moment, the pomp and ceremony faded away, leaving just the two of them connected by a bond forged through trials and true affection. With steady grace, Susanna continued forward, each step a testament to the journey she'd traveled, from a small-town girl to a future queen embracing her destiny. As she reached Nate at the altar, the cathedral erupted in soft applause and smiles, the beginning of their happily ever after shining bright beneath the vaulted ceilings. The grand cathedral fell into a profound stillness as the officiant gently invited Nate and Susanna to speak their vows. Nate's voice was steady but filled with emotion as he looked deeply into Susanna's eyes. "Susanna, from the moment I met you under the Lover's Oak, I knew my heart had found its true home. Today, I promise to love you with all that I am, to support your dreams, and to stand by your side through every joy and challenge. You have shown me courage and kindness beyond any royal decree, and I vow to honor and cherish you all the days of my life." Tears shimmered in Susanna's eyes as she reached for Nate's hands. "Nate, you came into my life like a surprising gift, a prince who saw me for who I am, not who I was expected to be. I promise to love you with honesty and patience, to be your partner and your friend, and to walk beside you through whatever comes our way. Together, we will build a life grounded in faith, laughter, and unwavering love." Their voices trembled with sincerity, each word a thread weaving their hearts closer. The congregation watched, touched by the genuine devotion shining between the two. As they sealed their vows with a tender kiss, a wave of joy and hope rippled through the cathedral, marking the start of a beautiful new chapter, written not by royal protocol, but by love. As Nate and Susanna's lips met in a tender, heartfelt kiss, the cathedral seemed to glow with an almost magical light. It was a kiss that spoke of promises kept, of dreams realized, and of a love that had blossomed against all odds. Outside, the grand bells of Brighton Cathedral began to toll in joyous celebration, their clear, ringing tones echoing through the city streets. The sound carried far and wide, announcing to the world that a new king and queen had united in marriage. Crowds gathered beyond the cathedral's towering doors erupted into cheers and applause. Flowers were tossed into the air, petals swirling like confetti in the gentle breeze. Vendors on the cobblestone streets waved flags adorned with the royal crest, while children waved hand-painted signs bearing messages of congratulations. Back inside, the royal court and guests rose to their feet, clapping enthusiastically as the newlyweds turned to face their people. Nate's eyes sparkled with pride and joy, while Susanna's radiant smile lit up the entire cathedral. Their fingers remained intertwined as they made their way down the aisle together, the weight of the past month's challenges lifting with every step. The crowd's applause followed them like a warm embrace, a chorus of approval that welcomed Susanna not just as their queen but as one of their own. Outside, photographers captured every moment, the glowing bride and the proud groom, the cascading gowns and the shining crowns, the celebration of a love story that had captured hearts around the world. As they stepped into the sunlight, Nate whispered, "This is just the beginning, my queen." Susanna squeezed his hand, her heart full. "Together, we can face anything." The city of Brighton celebrated late into the night, their joy a testament to the power of love to transcend worlds and rewrite destinies. The grand ballroom of Brighton Palace was a dazzling spectacle of chandeliers, crystal glasses, and floral arrangements that seemed to spill from every corner in cascades of white and soft pink. The walls echoed with the gentle murmur of excited guests, their laughter mingling with the soft strains of a string quartet playing in the background. As the newlyweds entered hand in hand, the room erupted in warm applause, and all eyes turned towards Susanna, glowing with happiness and elegance. The guests, from foreign dignitaries to local citizens, rose to their feet, their smiles welcoming her as the new queen. The reception unfolded with heartfelt speeches that touched every soul present. Ministers spoke of hope for a new era under King Nate's reign, while family friends shared anecdotes of the couple's journey. Finally, the moment everyone anticipated arrived. Queen Isadora rose gracefully from her seat. The room quieted, all attention on her regal figure standing with poised dignity. "My dear friends," the Queen began, her voice clear yet tender, "today, we celebrate not just the union of a king and a queen, but the joining of two hearts and two worlds." She paused, her eyes meeting Susanna's with a warmth that surprised many. "Susanna, from the moment you came into our lives, you have shown strength, grace, and a genuine love that transcends tradition and expectation. You have embraced our kingdom not as an outsider, but as family." The Queen's voice softened as she continued, "It takes courage to step into the unknown and even more to do so with kindness and integrity. I am proud to welcome you, Susanna Truitt, as my daughter-in-law, the Queen of Brighton, and a true beacon of hope for our future." A hush fell over the room before the guests erupted into heartfelt applause. Susanna felt tears prickle her eyes as she bowed her head in gratitude, deeply moved by the Queen's words. Nate squeezed her hand, his smile proud and full of love. As the Queen raised her glass, she concluded, "To Susanna and Nate, may your love inspire us all and may your reign be blessed with happiness and peace." Glasses lifted, and the room echoed with the resounding toast, a moment etched forever in the hearts of all who witnessed it. The morning sun bathed Brighton Palace in a golden glow as Susanna stood before the assembled crowd in the palace's grand courtyard. Today marked a milestone, not just for her, but for the entire kingdom. With poised elegance, she prepared to be officially titled Princess of Brighton. Clad in a breathtaking gown woven with intricate silver embroidery that caught the light with every movement, Susanna wore the royal sash with quiet dignity. Her tiara sparkled delicately atop her chestnut hair, a symbol of her new role and the weight of tradition she now carried. As the master of ceremonies announced her title to the crowd, a hush fell over the people gathered below, followed by a swell of applause that rippled through the square like a wave of warmth. Stepping forward, Susanna lifted her hand in a gentle wave. The faces before her were a sea of smiles and welcoming eyes, children clutching flags, elderly citizens wiping tears of joy, and young couples inspired by the tale of a girl from a small garden store who had captured a kingdom's heart. The crowd's cheers grew louder, a chorus of acceptance that washed away any lingering doubts Susanna had once harbored. From the balcony above, Nate stood proudly beside Queen Isadora, his gaze never leaving Susanna. Their eyes met, a silent exchange of love and mutual respect that said everything words could not. As Susanna descended the steps, the public's embrace became tangible. Flowers were tossed at her feet, hands reached out for a touch or a blessing, and voices called out blessings and congratulations. Despite the grandeur and formality, Susanna felt grounded. This wasn't just a title or a role, it was a commitment to a people who had already embraced her as one of their own. With a radiant smile, she thought back to the simple garden store in Georgia, to the moments under the lover's oak, and realized that life's greatest gifts often come wrapped in unexpected packages. The Princess of Brighton had arrived, not to change who she was, but to share her heart with a kingdom ready to love her in return. In the crisp morning air, King Nate and Princess Susanna set out from the palace in a modest carriage, leaving behind the opulence of royal life to immerse themselves in the everyday world of Brighton's villages. The journey was quiet, the landscape unfolding into rolling hills dotted with cottages and fields bursting with spring blossoms. Their first stop was a small farming village nestled near the coast. As the carriage rolled to a halt, villagers gathered eagerly along the street, their faces lighting up with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Nate stepped down first, his approachable smile putting many at ease. Susanna followed, her presence warm and genuine, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. They moved through the market square, shaking hands, exchanging stories, and listening intently as locals shared their hopes and concerns. Children tugged at Susanna's hand, eager to show her the crafts they had made, while elders offered baskets of freshly picked fruit and homemade bread. At the village schoolhouse, Susanna knelt to speak with a group of students, asking about their studies and dreams for the future. She promised to advocate for better educational resources, a pledge that drew heartfelt applause. Nate visited a community center where he rolled up his sleeves to help build benches alongside volunteers. His laughter and easy conversation broke down barriers, proving he was not just a distant monarch but a leader who cared deeply. Throughout the day, the royal couple's genuine interest in the people's lives and their willingness to serve inspired trust and admiration. Susanna and Nate shared moments of quiet reflection away from the crowds, acknowledging the challenges ahead but reaffirming their commitment to lead with humility and love. As the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the villages, the king and princess returned to Brighton Palace, hearts full, spirits lifted, and a renewed sense of purpose guiding their reign. The grand hall of Brighton Palace buzzed with anticipation as Susanna prepared to unveil her newest project, an initiative close to her heart that aimed to support small family businesses across the kingdom. After months of listening to villagers, artisans, and entrepreneurs during their visits, she knew firsthand the challenges these hardworking people faced. Standing confidently at the podium, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown that reflected her approachable spirit, Susanna addressed a room filled with government officials, business leaders, and representatives from communities far and wide. With this initiative, she began, her voice steady and heartfelt. We honor the backbone of our kingdom, the small family businesses that weave together the fabric of our communities. These businesses embody tradition, passion, and resilience. She outlined plans for grants, training programs, and marketing support designed to help these businesses thrive in a modern economy without losing their unique heritage. Susanna emphasized the importance of preserving local craftsmanship and fostering innovation. The room erupted in applause, many moved by her genuine dedication and clear vision. Later, in a more informal gathering, Susanna mingled with small business owners, listening to their stories and promising to be their advocate in the royal court. Her personal connection to her parents' garden store made her commitment authentic and inspiring. King Nate, standing nearby, watched with pride as Susanna's passion ignited a spark of hope throughout the kingdom. Together, they were not only rulers but partners in nurturing a future where tradition and progress walked hand in hand. The initiative marked a new chapter for Brighton, one where every family's dream mattered, and the royal family stood firmly beside them. Newsrooms across Brighton and beyond buzzed with excitement as headlines celebrated the new princess who had captured the hearts of a kingdom, not through grandeur or ceremony, but through genuine warmth and authenticity. Princess Susanna, the people's heartbeat, read one front-page article, while another proclaimed, "From garden store to royal advocate, a modern fairy tale." Television anchors lauded her down-to-earth approach, contrasting her refreshing openness with the often distant and formal image of royalty. Feature stories delved into Susanna's journey, from her quiet life in Georgia to the glittering halls of Brighton Palace, and her unwavering dedication to connecting with everyday citizens. Journalists praised her empathy, noting how she listened intently to the concerns of small business owners, farmers, and families, making each person feel valued and heard. Social media exploded with admiration as photos of Susanna visiting villages, laughing with children, and rolling up her sleeves circulated widely. Hashtags like #PrincessOfThePeople and #BrightonWithSusanna trended, showing the public's deep appreciation for her authenticity. Even the most skeptical commentators softened, acknowledging that Susanna's influence was helping to modernize the monarchy's image, bridging a historic gap between the crown and its people. In a heartfelt interview, Susanna shared her philosophy: "I believe royalty should serve its people, not stand apart from them. My hope is to be a princess who listens, who learns, and who fights for those whose voices are too often overlooked." King Nate stood proudly beside her during the interview, expressing his admiration for Susanna's courage and spirit. "She reminds me every day why I chose to follow my heart. Together, we want to build a kingdom where every citizen feels seen and valued." The royal family's newfound popularity breathed fresh life into Brighton's monarchy, inspiring a renewed sense of unity and hope. For Susanna, the praise was humbling, a testament to her belief that true royalty lies not in titles or riches, but in the courage to be oneself and to serve others with love. After the whirlwind of the wedding and public celebrations, Nate and Susanna finally escaped the grandeur of the palace for a much-needed retreat to the countryside. Nestled in a charming, secluded cottage surrounded by wildflowers and rolling green hills, the couple embraced the quiet intimacy of their honeymoon, far from royal duties and prying eyes. Mornings were slow and sweet. They woke to the soft chirping of birds and the golden glow of sunrise filtering through lace curtains. Nate brewed coffee while Susanna prepared fresh biscuits and preserves from the local market. Together, they savored simple breakfasts on a rustic wooden porch overlooking fields dotted with grazing sheep. Days unfolded with leisurely strolls along sun-dappled trails, hand in hand, sharing stories and laughter. They explored nearby villages, stopping at cozy cafes and artisan shops, delighting in the warmth of local hospitality. Susanna reveled in the freedom to be herself, without the weight of expectations or royal protocol. In the afternoons, they picnicked by bubbling streams. Nate teasing Susanna as she attempted to skip stones, her laughter ringing through the trees. Evenings were spent curled up by the fire, wrapped in a knitted blanket, sharing dreams for their future, both as monarchs and as partners. Away from the spotlight, Nate showed a softer, more playful side, telling tales from his childhood and revealing little quirks that made Susanna's heart flutter. She, in turn, opened up about her hopes and fears, finding comfort in his steady presence. The countryside's peaceful rhythms renewed their spirits and deepened their bond, reminding them why they had chosen each other above all else. In those quiet days, far from crowns and ceremonies, Nate and Susanna simply enjoyed being Nate and Susanna, two souls entwined, ready to face the future together. The grand windows of Brighton Palace framed a breathtaking panorama, verdant hills, sparkling rivers, and the vibrant villages that stretched across the kingdom. Nate and Susanna stood side by side in the quiet of the evening, their silhouettes bathed in the soft amber glow of the setting sun. After their peaceful honeymoon, returning to the palace felt different, not a return to duty alone, but the beginning of a shared journey. Their hands found each other's naturally, fingers entwining with the comfort of deep, unwavering love. Nate's eyes reflected a new light, a mix of hope, determination, and the quiet joy of having found his true partner. "This kingdom," he said softly, "is not just my responsibility. It's ours." Susanna smiled, her heart full. "And together, we'll build a future where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. Where tradition honors the past, but hope embraces change." They spoke of the challenges ahead, the balancing of royal expectations with their vision of a more open, compassionate monarchy. Yet, neither felt daunted. The strength they drew from each other was a powerful shield against uncertainty. As twilight deepened into night, the first stars appeared, twinkling like promises written across the velvet sky. The palace, with its centuries-old stone walls and regal grandeur, no longer felt like a fortress of formality. Instead, it was home, a place where love, courage, and faith would guide the way. Behind them, the royal crest shimmered quietly, a symbol of legacy renewed. Ahead of them, the kingdom thrived, alive with possibility and the warmth of a princess who had bridged two worlds. Nate turned to Susanna, pulling her close. "Whatever comes, we face it together. My queen, my love, my best friend." Susanna rested her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Always." In that moment, with the kingdom sprawling beneath their gaze and hearts intertwined, they stepped forward, ready to write their story as king and queen, united not only by crown and title but by a love that would endure through every season. The future awaited, bright and full of promise, just like a fairy tale, only this one was real, and it was theirs.
The Stories book is a captivating collection of tales that traverse diverse genres and emotions, spanning the realms of fantasy, science fiction, romance, and mystery. Each narrative is a journey into the unexpected, weaving intricate plots and compelling characters. With a skillful blend of vivid imagery and thought-provoking themes, this anthology invites readers to explore the depths of imagination and discover the universal threads that connect us all. From heartwarming moments to spine. We hope you enjoyed these captivating video stories. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content like this. Thanks for watching and keep spreading the video story.